Welcome back to West Ham Unofficial. I hope you are all well. Back with another interview today. So I hope you will enjoy it. So we are joined by former Coventry defender David Busst. David, how are you?
Afternoon. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming on. A couple of people in the chat. Let's see who is in. Caffel, hope you're well. Charlie, hope you're well. Jake, do you go to school? Yes, I do. It's Easter holidays. Hi everyone. Hi Dad. Right. We're gonna get straight on into it then. So, 50 matches you played for Coventry, 4 goals scored. We'll start from the beginning then. Did you always want to be a footballer?
I did. I'm just going to correct you on those stats there. I'm not sure where they're from, but I actually scored 5 goals,
Dear.
2 own
Sorry.
goals. And
Wikipedia, there you go.
when you're a defender like me, every goal counts, believe me. So I actually made 54 appearances and 5 goals. And I always say that I had a better goal ratio than John Slarko, who was playing for Coventry at the time.
Yeah. Well, I'm never looking at Wikipedia ever again then. When did you think, that your dream to be a footballer became a reality?
Well, quite late on, really. I'd been associated with through Sunday football, having a few trials when I was 15, 16. I was short, little, overweight left winger then, who was right-footed. And then I had a growth spurt, and I grew probably about a foot in about 2 years. So non-league was my way into professional football, and I was playing works football at 16. And that was probably the biggest test for me because I was thrown in against adults. So the physical side of the game, I had to adjust to really, really quickly. Had a few trials over the next 8 years, but nothing concrete came through them. And then the last chance came when I was 24. Coventry invited me for a trial after we had a player called Barry Powell who played over 500 league games. He came to Moor Green, who was not in the Bees Premier League then, towards the end of his journey, and he recommended me to one of the Coventry scouts, and they came and watched me, and then got invited for a trial, and then signed.
Yeah, interesting. What what was it like? And you explained that how you signed for Coventry. What was that like? When you got the message that you were gonna play for Coventry.
Again, I was in full-time employment. I was working for an insurance company at the time. I'd had a trial in November, a week's trial, where I broke my toe in one of the games, and then we went up to Old Trafford to play a reserves match, and it was again, it was a trial for me as well. And there was 9 internationals in the Man United reserve team. It was one of Lee Sharp's comeback games as well from knee injury, and we managed to beat them. No, we managed to draw 1-1. And we had quite a strong time there, team going up there, and Terry Butcher was took charge of the team as well that night. And then I didn't hear anything for ages. And then just before Christmas, they told me they wanted to sign me, so that was a great present. And then over Christmas, Terry Butcher got the sack. So my dreams went from being as high as they could to then being as low as they could in a week's period. But luckily for me, Don Howe was the assistant manager, and he took over the team, and he'd watched me while I was training with them and while I was having my trial and things like that. And so they called me in and asked me for if I wanted to sign. I then had to work a week's notice, which was really tough because obviously I wanted to just go and play football. And that was, to get paid for playing football, training full time. I just wanted to get in there as soon as I could, but I had to work my notice. And it was a great day. And then, the rest sort of documented from then, really.
Yeah. Just before we move on, a few questions have come in from someone, and I can imagine you could probably guess who they've come from by the end. But the first one is, how often did you visit the Clock pub on the A45 after training?
I wonder who this is from. Well, there could be a few people. A few people knew about our, and we used a code then as well. So way before everyone's talks about TikTok now, we were using that phrase back then because it was our code for when we finished training on a Wednesday. We'd have normally we'd have a Wednesday off. So on the Tuesday we'd just go TikTok, and everyone, well, there's about 4 or 5 of us would know that we were popping in the clock pub for some rehydration.
Yeah. Second one is a rumor has it you had a Escort convertible and thought you were Don Johnson from the Miami Vice.
Yes, I did. We all have these impulse buys, but I had it before I signed for Coventry, so it wasn't like I was, joining the football jet set and I thought I'll go and get myself a flash car. I'd always been a fan of XR3s, and next one was the one with a white roof and electronic white roof, and it was a bugger to clean, so it wasn't the best investment.
And the final one is coming. So can you tell us about the nickname Panatella?
Panatella. God, I wish I'd been on this when Pigeon Chest we called John Williams, or Pinhead. He had quite a few nicknames, to be honest. And he was one that he made up of me. It used to be the old advert for the cigars, and there was a guy obviously he was balding, a bit like me back then. Had a bit of a wrap over top of his head, Bobby Charlton style, and that's where Willow called me Panatella Head from that advert.
I'm sure John Williams will see this at some point. So I'm sure he'll like that. But back to the questions then. Playing those games for Coventry. What was your favourite part of the whole match day experience of playing a game for Coventry?
Oh, good question. I think it was the build-up. I mean, in the early days, it was, I was only coming in, getting on the bench, played a couple of games, then was left out, and it was probably about the season 93, 94, 94, 95, I think it was, where you became a regular, and then so your week changed, because then when you knew you was definitely in the squad, because you'd either been playing well or things like that, you either had a midweek match or the training. So I'm not explaining it very well. So when you're on the fringe, you'll only know on the Thursday about whether you're involved with the squad, right, because they'll bring you into the squad on the Thursday. When you're a little bit more established, you know from the start of the week that, right, we're playing Tuesday, we've probably got Wednesday off, we're in Thursday, it'll be 5-a-side, and then we're travelling on the Friday night or staying over, or we're travelling up on the Saturday, and that became more routine. So the expectations were higher then, but you knew what was going on. Whereas when you was in the reserves and being brought in, you didn't know whether you'd be travelling on for the weekend. You didn't know whether you'd be in training on the Saturday morning because you were in the reserves. It was just a lot. When you become a more what's the word? More part of the squad, more consistently part of the squad, your routine is a lot better.
Yeah. Who was the best character in the dressing room when you were at Coventry?
Oh, quite a few over the years. There's footballers back then. Yeah, well, even now, the change room changes every year. New players come in, old players go out, and characters. They're what makes the dressing room that experience. Call it banter, but you get banter, bullying. It's I don't like those phrases which have been brought into that. We were just a dressing room. If you didn't want to get involved in it, you just kept quiet, kept your head down. If you wanted to take the mickey out of someone, whatever if they're wearing something or how they've played, then you got to be big enough to take it if you're going to dish it out. So people like Ali Pickering, he was a great character in the dressing room. Mancurian, and we had our own sort of group. So we've mentioned John Williams earlier. So a group within a group. There's about 6 or 7 of us, and we were called the F Troop by Mick Brown. And we just we played reserves together. We'd sort of come into the team, At least 4 or 5 of us were in the first team each week, and we just got on really well, and we still keep in touch now. There's Willow, Steve Morgan, Lee Jenkinson, Ali, Sean Flynn, Sandy Robertson, who had signed from Rangers. He fitted that. So yeah, it was a good little group, and but it wasn't like one where we kept everyone else out of it. It was just that we'd come through the hard way. Half of us had come from non-league and had built into it that way. So it was a bit of a respect thing as well.
Yeah. How much do you think, because obviously how much do you think football has changed from when you played to the modern day of how football is now?
I imagine they're a lot more fitter and healthier than what we were. We were on that verge when the Premier League started, and I signed in '91, and I think the first Premier League season was '92, '93. So you could see that football was changing. But for the five years that I was involved with Coventry, slowly over the years, you could see that the staff was changing. So round about the middle of that term, around about '93, '94, we started having the sports psychologists coming in. We started having specific fitness trainers coming in. We had people talking to us about our diet and nutrition. So you could just see that game was changing. We like anyone, and I still think to this day that there should be a blend between the two. We had a great morale within that group that I've just been talking to you about, and how it fitted into the wider dynamics of the team. And you need that time to sort of enjoy away from the pitch, because it is a pressure situation. The results, whether you play well and you lose, or whether you don't play well and you win, whether you're in the team or not. A lot of things come into it, and I think you need that support, and we did that with that group of players that I just mentioned. But it's hard to compare to the modern day now, because if I'd been earning anywhere near what they're earning now, then I'm making sure that my body was at its fittest, and would adapt accordingly. Back then, that was the norm as such.
Yeah. Do you think that football back then was harder? Because obviously, as you mentioned there, like money has massively come into the game, and things like like the Tottenham Man United game with Son and all of the kind of going to ground quite a lot. Do you think that if that happened back then, that would be stared upon? And do you think that it's an easier game now than what it was for players?
It's really tough to compare, because I could go back and say, well, because you could compare us to the 80s, the 70s, the 60s. It's the game changes and it develops, and players are in that sort of they'll play to whatever's going around at that time. Seen Son yesterday go down from that. I don't deny that he got touched or flicked, but it didn't take 3 minutes and players to help him back up from that. I think there's a more, no, not more, because obviously that stopped Man United getting a goal. Now, you could argue, well, whether he was hit or not, by putting that doubt in the referee's mind and VAR being in play, then he had a chance of taking that goal out, even though secretly he knows that he wasn't. He was touched, but it didn't affect the game. He wasn't fouled in any way, but he put a seed of doubt, and by going to VAR, it might give them a chance that he would get turned over, and it did. Rightly or wrongly, football's a very lucrative game now, and money does come into it. There's honest players. So me personally, I would never have gone down like that at all. I don't care what anyone says, because it's, you look at that game yesterday, there was a couple of other instances where people had got elbowed. I think Aurier had got, not deliberately, but he caught one. He stayed down for ages, and that wasn't even to do with the goal. And I just think the physicality has gone out of the game. You can't tackle anymore. You can't tackle from behind. You can't tackle from the side. It's tough for defenders, if I'm honest. That's why everyone needs to be a midfielder, being able to play out from the back. So I think it's hard to compare 90s with now, because the game's changed. It's quicker. Formations are different. People's tactics are different. So But I'm a little bit disappointed that the physicality is going out of the game.
Yeah. Daz, was John Williams as quick as he said he was?
He's got video to prove it, and I must have seen it 100 times, not because I want to, but whenever he used to go around his house, it would be on. I mean, it's a great story with his run belows sprint challenge, and you see some of the players. So Lee Jenkinson who obviously came to Coventry after that. He was in the final, didn't come anywhere. So seeing him in there as well, and there was a lot of the players were more high profile than John at the time, and I think he put a bet on himself, and he just strolled it. He was quick over sort of 30, 40 yards, and he weren't too bad over 10, I suppose. But that made up for his lack of control. So we'll leave it there.
I'm sure he'll have something to say about that when he watches it.
Yeah.
But Dad mentioned to me that you did score against West Ham. This is a West Ham channel. What was that like?
There's a bit of build up to that, and even stuff from this day. So my son-in-law, even though he's a Brummie, is a massive West Ham fan. So his son Remy has got all the West Ham kits, and I buy him the Coventry kits as well because he comes to the Coventry games. But he seems on forever blowing bubbles every 5 minutes. So there's that connection, and then. At that time, God, you'd probably tell me what year it was. I would say 94, 95.
94, yeah.
So I'd been on holiday with Sean Flynn the summer before then, because I think it was around about Christmas time, and we met a group of West Ham lads, and with their families, and we got on really well with them for the sort of fortnight we were away, and we kept in touch afterwards, and we arranged to meet them after the game. So rather than going back on and we didn't know I was going to score, didn't even know if I was going to be playing. So we didn't go back on the team bus. We went and met them in a pub round the corner from the West Ham. I can't remember what the name of it was, and it was only afterwards when we were coming back out. We only stayed for one pint. We thought, what were we thinking of going to West Ham? I'd just scored the winning goal. And now I'm walking around some pub round just close to the ground, full of West Ham fans, walking in there as if they're going to go, all the best. Thanks for taking the points off us. But luckily they were fine, and the lads we were with were obviously well-known West Ham fans as well. But the goal itself was, I watch it back now. Some people put it on YouTube and things like that, and I still think, how the hell did I score it? I mean, what was I still doing up there? After the initial first phase of the move had passed away, and of all people, it was Dion Dublin, I think, crossed the ball, and yeah, it was a great cross. I timed it right, and got your goalkeeper Ludo McCloskey, that's him. Just happened to beat him at the near post, which was great. So I met up with the lads, a couple of times, a few years afterwards as well, and. Rob, I can't remember his surname, but they were a great bunch of West Ham fans, and fond memories.
Yeah. When you played, and perhaps if you didn't have when you didn't have the best of first halves, did you fear going into the dressing room? Was it if you didn't have a good half, or if you did have a good half, were you praised massively, or was it just kind of tactics talked and then go out for the second half?
I think in any football, whether you win or losing, you don't go around, slapping everyone on the back and saying well done, because it's only half a job done at half time. The managers that I've known have always, they'll go through a bit of the tactics. Maybe there's been a change in formation. Maybe we've been caught out a couple of times because we're either too high up the pitch or too much. So it's more, constructive sort of strategies of what's gone on. And if I think Tony Cottee, in that game was a very good player at the time, and he was coming deeper and deeper, which meant we were probably doing our job because he wasn't getting the ball. So then we just had to be aware that he might change and then play further on our shoulders, and we'd have to be careful with the ball over the top. And I think that John Moncur was playing then. So it's those little bits that might happen in the second half, as opposed to job's done, put your feet up and go home. So it was, and then if you've ever been in a game when you've been getting hammered, people will come in and they'll let who's been not doing what they should be doing, and try and get people to try and turn the second half round and then kick up the backside, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What's your favourite away ground that you visited as a player?
Ooh, favourite ground. I think back then, Blackburn had probably one of the best pitches. Not so much the stadium, but the pitch was really good surface. Ewood Park and also Newcastle. Newcastle had that sort of, their crowd, likes Man United and Arsenal. There was more probably Arsenal fans and that in there, but Newcastle you just hear that reputation of the Toon Army, and it can be quite intimidating. A bit like West Ham, really. I mean, their reputation always went ahead, and the chicken run was down there. You never went to get a ball out if it went over the boardings up down there. So yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, your career was cut short because of the your broken leg at Man United. Just after that really really unlucky incident. What was going through your mind? What were you feeling? And I mean, just not good, for your career and just for you, really.
I believe things in life don't happen for a reason, but it's what you learn from setbacks. My football career, to have played professional football in the best league in the world, will always be a highlight, and that will never go away. Realistically, did I ever think my career would go on any longer than 30 at the highest level? Probably not, because you start to go down the leagues then. So I've just always been an optimistic, outward-looking person, and go, right, I had 5 years at the top. What's the next stage? So I got injured, finished my career at Old Trafford. It could have been worse. I could have been playing in the reserves at Bury, Gig Lane, and it wouldn't have been noticed by anyone. And here we are, 25 years later, talking about it. And today it opens doors for me, or opportunities, and the charity that I work for. It's good to have a talking point, because people seem to remember, what happened to me, and it's a good icebreaker, as they say. But yeah, I just look at it and go, right, that happened. No point dwelling on the past. How can I impact the future? And then I would have gone down probably back into non-league. So what happened to me was it gave me an opportunity to stay in football. So while I was injured, I took my coaching badges. And then an opportunity came for me to work at the club in '98, I think it was, in the job that I'm doing today. So without me getting injured at Old Trafford that day, I wouldn't be probably still associated with the club and involved in sport and football and working for a charity 25 years later.
Yeah, a really kind of nice to start. So great attitude to life, it is what it is, and unfortunately that happened. But you said you moved into coaching. Was that your first immediate thought? It's a shame that my career's over, but I've got to move on and do something positive. And you became a coach, as you said. You've got your coaching badges. How much have you enjoyed that, and what you're still doing today?
I think so I don't coach as much now, but if we go back to that, in '97, I spent 2 years where I had 22 operations on my right leg. And that wasn't to get me back playing, that was to get me back walking. And recuperating took a long time, and I had a lot of infections, and it was a tough time back then, because I knew my career was finished, but I had to get back to some sort of quality of life. And then it'd be what could I do in between in between my operations, because they spanned over a sort of 2.5 year period afterwards. So I took my coaching qualifications locally through the county FA in Birmingham, and it gave me the insight to say, well, I can go back to financial services, which is what I was doing before, but I've had a taste of football and coaching and being coached, so I thought I'll give it a go. Use my experience from playing non-league for a lot of years and playing professionally, and can give back to players and other grassroots coaches. So I did my A licence. I was working with the academy at Coventry. I was managing for a team called Solihull Borough, who are called Solihull Moors now. They're in the conference. I managed a team called Evesham. So for about 6 years, football was 24/7, 7 days a week, 7 evenings a week, either academy, non-league, or trying to play a little bit because that urge to play football never goes away, whether you can or can't play because of injury. At 35, I started playing over 35s football again, and it took me 7 years to get the confidence to get back onto a football pitch. And it was through friends, a slow approach, playing five-a-side, and people were going nowhere near me. But that confidence built up over the years, and then I started playing sort of competitive football again. At over 35s and went on to play another 15 years. I'm 53 now. So I enjoyed that, and I ended up managing the over 35s team as well because that's my background. And but my sort of main role fell into the community, doing what I do today. And every club up and down the country has a community foundation, or which West Ham do now, because I've met the guy that runs your one. And we all do similar work in the community, and it's very rewarding. It's very different day in, day out. And here I am at the Ricoh Arena, where Coventry will be coming back next year with, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll still be in the Championship.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic, story from the injury, still being in football today. And have you enjoyed every second of it?
Yeah, I'm going to say life. You just, if life throws you lemons, you make lemonade.
Yeah, yeah. Fantastic, fantastic way to look at it. And fair play to you, because some people would have thought their injury packed it in and gone into doing something like what you did before. But you stuck to it. Kept in football. And doing what you like. But thank you very much for coming on, Dave. Thank you very much for coming on and doing an interview. And I'm sure you'll have a message with John Williams after and saying, "I'll get you back."
Jake, thanks for having me. And I'll be WhatsApping Willow in about 5 minutes. So.
Just before we wrap it up, though, last question is coming. Who was your hardest opponent?
Oh, good question. I'm gonna go with two, and I'll explain the reasons. First one was Alan Shearer before his knee injury, because I think he was the best forward in the world at that time. He was everything a centre forward had. And I played against him, and we beat Blackburn 5-1 as well, just after they were champions, and I scored in that game. So I scored more goals than he did, so that was good. And the other one was Ian Wright. And the reason was Ian Wright was a non-league player like myself. He came from Enfield, I think. And he had a real determination of where he'd come from, and he was playing in an Arsenal team and was very good. And he had such a tenacity in possession and out of possession, which gave defenders a hard time both ways. And he was a real tough character as well. And he was just as challenging to play against him, if not more, because of his physical presence, even though he wasn't that big. So between Ian Wright and Alan Shearer.
Yeah, there's some fantastic quality there from those two players. Just them two players alone. Just to be on the same pitch as them must have been kind of amazing, and then to play against them, just to be around them, players like that, must have been a privilege and a complete joy.
Yeah, as I said earlier about being paid to play football, I was paying subs to play football week in, week out before then. And recently I've been paying subs to play now. So whether you're good or not, but to get paid for playing something that you love to do is one of the best things.
Yeah, bang on that. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. But Dave, as I said, thank you very much for coming on and doing an interview. Greatly appreciate John Williams as well for sending in some questions as well. I'll be back very, very soon. Hit the like button, subscribe to West Ham Unofficial if you want to. Lots of interviews like this coming very, very soon. Thank you very much, Dave, and I'll see you next time.